There's a movement brewing, and that movement is the Me Total lifestyle.
It centers around you keeping your sense of self intact and in gaining clarity of purpose as you age. I'm Carrie.
I'm Joe.
I'm JM.
And we're on a mission to show you how to enjoy friends, fellowship, and life without substance dependence.
It's time to discover how you can begin living a Me Total lifestyle.
Right here on the FUZZEE'ish podcast. Let's go.
Gentlemen, we were just joined by pop sensation Destiny Malibu. It's a little bit off the beaten path for what we usually talk about in Fuzzy Land, but give the audience a little bit of a sense of what you think we unpacked with Destiny on this episode.
I mean, when I just after that episode talking to Destiny, I think when I hear her story, what I see is like I think about concrete and I think about a seed like growing through the concrete. You know, it seems like she's had, you know, some circumstances around her and she's been able just through her own creativity and her faith, just really sort of maneuver her way through that. And I think the audience will be inspired and may even pick something out of the interview.
Yeah, I was actually, I really enjoyed that time. We probably could have talked to her for another hour about a bunch of other topics. I think the thing that really stuck out is that when we talked about products and practices, and we typically think about that in regards to substance, I think her answer made it really clear that that's something that can be applied to mental wellness in general. And so something that I think we can think about as we go forward, just even on the macro aspect of the show, is that what we're touching on, obviously addiction and alcohol is such a core component of mental wellness or mental illness even. There's so much more as you go up into mental wellness as a whole. And I think she really started to uncover that as part of the interview.
Yeah, she's dealt with incredible trials and tribulations. And Carrie, I think you and Destiny both put it really well, that it's very paramount that you talk about how you're tested inside of your testimony so you can give that as a gift to other people. And we're very grateful that all three of us are able to come together often and talk about our stories, but we're really grateful for all of these instances where we have these amazing guests and they come on and they talk about what they've gone through and how that didn't break them. So with that, let's get into the interview. Destiny Malibu is an all-American, multicultural, bilingual singer, songwriter, musician, and podcaster. Destiny is best known as a pop singer specializing in high-energy, genre-blending music who is an American Idol alumni. She performs at schools across the U.S. and is currently performing multiple dates in Las Vegas. Destiny's sound is similar to artists like Ariana Grande, Ellie Goulding, and Iggy Azalea. With over 200,000 followers and subscribers on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and others, her content has over 7 million total views. Say My Name, her latest song and music video release, is a huge success, garnering 1 million plus views on YouTube in the first 24 hours of release. Destiny Malibu, as seen on ABC, Fox News, and Univision, is an American Idol alum and has performed in standing room only dates at Virgin Hotels Las Vegas in 22 and 23, where she also filmed her mental health focused podcast, the Destiny Malibu podcast. Destiny Malibu has also collaborated with American Heart Association, John Paul Mitchell, SiriusXM, Professional Fighters League, among others, and has performed internationally in Singapore, the Dominican Republic, and the USA at the Texas Rock Fest, Florida Music Festival, House of Blues Hollywood, the Viper Room, and schools across America, traveling on her 45-foot tour bus with lineups that have included Earth, Wind & Fire, Plain White T's, and others. Destiny wrote her first song, A Million Kisses, at the age of 9, and at 17, she was signed as a songwriter to Burnett Music Group. Her love to share her music in person has led her to performing her own songs worldwide. So, Destiny, I've already kind of done a pre-read on your bio because I wanted to make sure I got it all in, and it's very extensive. And I gave these gentlemen a little bit of a preview of who you are and stuff like that, because me and you do have a little history together and some correspondings from LinkedIn, and you're a fan of Gary Vee, and we've kind of conversed on that stuff before.
Gary V, what up?
Tell for the audience that's just going to be tuning into this episode, give us a little bit of the background. I mean, I know you're an amazing recording artist. I've downloaded Say My Name. I've watched it several times on YouTube.
Great video, great song.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate that.
Donovan McNabb, baby.
Yeah. And you're also a mental health advocate, which all of us three guys are as well. But give us the quick elevator pitch or the 30,000 foot view of who Destiny Malibu is so we can catch the audience up real quick.
Yeah, so hi everybody, to everybody that's listening, and thank you, Joey and Carrie and Jay, for having me. I am so excited to be here. And I'm a singer songwriter and mental health podcaster. I have been making music my entire life. My mom was a professional recording artist herself. She was a Latin pop star. So I was fell in love with music really young, and some of my earliest memories were watching her write and record. So I just knew right away that this was what I wanted to do with my life. And as I was touring and just in general with close friendships and with family members, I realized that mental health was a huge issue. And I knew that it was something that affected people close to my life. It had really affected me at one point in my life and some friends. But when I was touring at high schools and colleges across the US and going to these different schools, that's when it really hit me how big of an epidemic this mental health crisis is globally. And horrifically, almost every single school that I went to, there had been a suicide recently at the school.
Wow.
And that just completely broke my heart, still breaks my heart talking about it right now. And I just think it's so important to bring the conversation of mental health more to the public and talk about it more and let people know that it's okay to be raw and authentic, and you don't always have to say I'm good when people say how are you. You can find those close people where you can really have intimate conversations about what you're feeling and what's going on in your life.
I agree totally, and there's plenty of ways to attack the mental health epidemic out there. There's obviously, dealing with it the way that we are, right? We're attacking it from the angle of, alcohol and substance abuse and going that route. But there's all kinds of different forms of mental health issues that people suffer from. But given that you are a little bit younger than our typical audience, our typical podcast interviewee, and you've been to college campuses recently. I think for me and JM and Carrie, it's probably been about 20 years or so since
Dude, let's just say it's been a minute.
we were
Doesn't look like it.
since we were gracing the quads of various different institutions along the Eastern Seaboard. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing out there in the colleges these days as it pertains to alcohol usage and abuse. What my assumption is that alcohol use has gone way down, but I could be completely wrong. I haven't been on a college campus in a minute. Tell us about what you're seeing out there on the streets.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that would probably depend on, what circle of people you're hanging out with. So, I mean, I think it's great if your goal is sober living to try your best to surround yourself with supportive people who understand that goal. I will say that in my experience, pretty much everybody I know drinks and does those things, and that can be an interesting environment to navigate because I don't drink. My friends know that. I I started a sober journey because one of my close friends was really, really, really struggling with alcohol. And so I decided, to support them, that I was going to do a sober living and let them know that they weren't alone and we could go out together and they didn't have to be the only one that wasn't drinking and stuff like that. And it was very interesting to see the response for some people. And even today, I mean, it makes a lot of people very uncomfortable. I think we've been programmed to believe that you can't have fun without drinking. And that's like one of the main social aspects. You go out, people want to drink, people want to do those things. And, I'm not going to say that there's something wrong with that. I think everybody has the choice to live their life the way they want. But if you or someone is struggling with it, it's really important to surround yourself with people who are supportive and to be able to have those open conversations. And for me, even though thank God I don't personally struggle with alcohol, I felt so good not drinking that I maybe drink, like I'll have a glass of wine or something like once a year, like on my birthday or Christmas or something, but I don't drink pretty much 99% of the time, and that has been a really beautiful experience, not only getting to know myself, but in social interactions, just learning how to navigate sober is like a whole deeper connection actually with other people.
Totally. No, I feel that. And it's interesting that well, first off, that's awesome that you did that for your friend. There's a lot of people out there that need people like you to stand up and be that shoulder to lean on. And so, congratulations for, doing that. That's amazing.
Thank you,
What,
Jay.
just as a question about the friend that was struggling,
Mhm.
outside of having obviously great support from you, what was the path that they took to try to find, a sober lifestyle, or, to try to beat alcohol as an addiction? Was there a specific sort of practice that they went after?
Yeah, so I have a couple friends who do struggle with this, and so it's different for each one.
Yep.
But for this particular friend, they still actively go to AA, and they joined AA, and I think that that's a beautiful community. My grandfather, who unfortunately passed away last year, he was an AA member his
Mm,
entire life, and
good for
so
him.
I had gone to AA meetings with him sometimes because he used to tell me, "Oh, you have to come and hear these stories. Like, they're incredible."
Mm,
And it was beautiful to see. I even went with my friend actually a couple times too. And it's so beautiful to see that community just supporting each other and uplifting each other, because I think a huge, huge, huge fundamental part of healing is having community
sure.
and having people you can talk to in all aspects of mental health. It's so important to remember that you're not alone and to
Yep.
find those people that you really resonate with, and those people who can support your journey, who may even be on a similar journey to you, and just encourage each other, because you know healing is not a linear experience. There's
Mm,
ups and downs. And one of the beautiful things about AA, for example, is that you have a sponsor. And when you're feeling like you are having a weak moment, there's somebody that you can call, there's somebody that you
always.
can talk to. And not only with alcohol or with drugs or any of those things, in general, just with our emotions, having someone you can talk to saves lives.
Hmm.
So I think community is so important and so beautiful.
I mean, I love that. I don't know how much you know about our story or why we started this podcast, but the reality is, we always talk about everybody's decision is different, and then everybody's path to whatever different relationship they have with alcohol is different as well. We've had a couple of people on that have talked about AA, and we're big subscribers to that path, and certainly that strategy, and that works for a lot of people, and has worked for even some of the people on this podcast today. But the whole idea of what we want is to provide exactly that outlet, right? Is to be a community and to be a group of people, including our guests like yourself, of friends that have been through similar journeys and want to be that shoulder. And so we also want to be very flexible in what that looks like. We're not here to say how you get there. And so, I think one of the things, guys, that we can take away already from this conversation is, how do we offer that shoulder for people that don't have the Destiny Malibus in their life, that are willing to stand up and say, I'm going to do this with you because I care, right? How can
Right.
we be there for the people that don't have the sponsor at AA to pick up and call the phone for? How can we make this a channel that this community can reach out to and find the support of not only our team, but obviously all the folks that we're so fortunate to involve ourselves with, like Destiny today?
I was just
Yeah.
gonna say too, just speaking of, having friends like Destiny, I'm just curious for you, you said something earlier about being okay, not being okay. And,
Hmm.
I feel like, for you, Destiny, I mean, you're in the spotlight, like one of your videos has millions of views. Like that's incredible. You're like a celebrity, and
Thank
I
you
would
so much.
imagine there's a level of pressure from fans, from family, from friends to be okay. You're
Hmm.
living this life like, hey, you got everything. Like, how could you have a problem? And I'm just curious for you, how do you sort of balance this persona, as an entertainer, but also like what you actually need? Like how have you been able to find that space for yourself when you're not feeling like a rock star one day?
Right. Well, that's a really great question, Carrie. And I would say, social media has its positives and its negatives, But I will say that one of the positives that I've seen really come out in the last few years is so much more vulnerability from people
Mm.
across all platforms. And I think there has been a movement where people are realizing that, I would say probably like in my grandparents' age, from what they've told me, people didn't talk about mental health. And in general, they weren't as vulnerable. So people would say, "Oh, how are you?" And be like, "Oh, I'm good." And you go on with your day. And I think in today's society, people are realizing that there's so much more opportunity for connection when you can find those people that you can really be vulnerable with and really have a conversation with. So for me in my career, I'm really big on trying to have a positive mindset, to letting yourself feel your feelings, not, toxic positivity, but, allowing yourself to feel things, but then working to actively redirect your thoughts and trying to actively work and build your skill set of being able to pick yourself up when you're having a difficult day and redirect your thoughts. I think the power of thoughts is incredible. And when I was younger, I used to think that I had no control over my thoughts.
Mm.
I used to think that I was completely helpless to whatever emotion hit me. And as I've gotten older and had more experiences, I realized that the power of thought is that we actually do have a huge influence on the way that we think. I'm not saying that you have, 100% control when you're dealing with something like clinical depression or something, but we do have a huge influence on ourselves and others with our thoughts. If you're looking in the mirror and you're telling yourself, "Oh my gosh, I'm so ugly. Oh my gosh, I hate myself." Your body, your words are powerful. So your body physically responds to this. And I think in my career and in my music, I try to promote as often as possible in my lyrics, in my songs, in my interviews, um, that we do have an opportunity to get better, to redirect our thoughts, to have community, to refocus our mindset and be the person we want to be. And in my brand new song, "Say My Name," I think was probably, which actually has been my most successful video with over I think it has like 1.5 million views now, which I'm so thankful for.
It's amazing.
And that whole song, I wrote it about my personal experience with mental health.
Mm.
And I think that's why they really resonated with it. If you watch the music video, I play the role of a high school cheerleader who seemingly has it all. She's, got the quarterback boyfriend and, got all of her posse and seems like she has it all together. But you see throughout the music video that I'm struggling with alcohol, I'm struggling with drugs, and that internally I'm in chaos. And at the end of the music video, I throw my pills away and I decide to start a new journey in my life and a new leaf. And so in my career, back to your original question, Gary, sorry, I got to win all
Take
of
your
this place
time.
there. But to your original question, I think that finding that balance of talking about something and then also having like my fun pop music, but also letting people know that it's completely okay and necessary to have these raw, authentic conversations about what so many people go through.
Mhm. Yeah,
Big stuff.
one thing that I think connects really well to that story is I remember when I first started at Vayner some like 10 or so years ago. It was at a time in society where people really didn't talk about their mental health issues, not like they do today, at least. And I remember one of my employees actually had to take short-term disability to actually go into an inpatient facility to deal with her stress and anxiety and stuff like that. And I feel like mental health broadly had its moment kind of over the past 10 years as people have been drawing more awareness to people's situations and destigmatizing, broad mental health issues. I think we're also entering in a similar phase for alcohol and substance abuse where it's okay to talk about your problems and your substance abuse issues, whereas maybe it wasn't okay just 12 months ago, because now we've got celebrities, we've got influencers, we've got people that are self-identifying as either massive substance abusers or even casual substance abusers, and realizing that there is no help for you unless you wave the white flag. One of the biggest issues that I've seen on the just regular mental health side and now on the alcohol side is, yeah, you could be somebody that's massively struggling with addiction, or you could be somebody that's massively struggling with anxiety or bipolar depression and stuff like that. But there's all kinds of varieties of these forms of issues. And especially if you have a functioning version of it, it's really hard for you to get support if people around you, either at your office or within your immediate circle, like your friends, families, loved ones, if nobody knows about your issues, it's hard to get the help you need. So that's one of the things that I'm hoping that we get across as we continue to have these pods, especially with somebody like you. You live out in LA, which is like the epicenter of functioning, dysfunctionality, if you will.
Yeah. Very true.
What would you say? Would you say that we're kind of getting ready to enter into that era where people are starting to feel more comfortable disclosing these issues, or do you think we still have a long way to go?
I think that we as a society have made huge progress, and I'm very thankful for that. In the last few years, have never seen so many people talking about mental health, artists, influencers, and just, friends and people just being more open. So, of course, I think that there's always room for growth. There's always room for improvement. So I do think that we have a long ways to go, but I'm really thankful that this has become a topic that people are so much more willing to discuss.
Well, you said something about, you said being your authentic self in a previous statement. So I love latching on to something like authenticity because it's such an obtuse and vague word. But I feel like one of the reasons why people struggle with that, and talk to me a little bit about like growing up in like the limelight, the spotlight, Hollywood, all that kind of stuff in response to this. But I feel like the more people front or try to be somebody they're not, the harder it is to come out with this information and get the help that you need. Would you agree with that term? Is the pressure of influencer lifestyle in Southern California or fame, does that force people into their shell a little bit and make them maybe hide these disclosures and prevent themselves from getting the help they need?
Yeah, Joey, I would definitely say that it was a difficult decision a few years ago, to really decide that I was going to open up and start talking about this, even for myself, even for someone that's so passionate about it, because unfortunately, I think that there is a lot of shame surrounding mental health. And when I have talked to some people, I know that different people have told me similar responses that, oh, I don't want to tell anybody that I'm suffering from depression because they're going to look down on me. They're going to look at me differently. And, whether you're in Hollywood or you're in everyday life, that is always something that I think can cause people to question whether they want to be their authentic selves and be honest. I will say that it's very important to decide who you have those intimate conversations with, because, for example, a trusted friend, a teacher, a mentor, a coach, maybe someone at church or in AA, someone that you feel safe with, because unfortunately, I think some people have opened up to someone before and then gotten
Burned. Yeah.
A not positive response. Like, I remember many years ago sharing with somebody that I was going through really bad depression, and I don't blame them because they had never experienced depression, but their response was something along the lines of, "Oh, why are you depressed? Like, you shouldn't be depressed. Like, you have so much." Like, they were kind of,
They're shaming you. They're guilting you.
yeah. So they were almost kind of like disgusted that I would have, any emotional issues. So I think it's important to try to be selective on who you share things with, but to also, try to educate people. In that moment when that happened, it was a little hurtful, but when I reflected on it, it's also like, well, this person has never experienced this. So, you have to try to take that perspective of empathy. Okay, well, they might not understand, but you know what? This person over here who really severely struggled with depression and is doing better. This is probably someone who's going to understand what I'm going through, a coach, a mentor, like I said, someone in AA or one of these communities, or what you guys are doing. Like what you guys are doing is incredible. And I'm so thankful that you guys are promoting this message and bringing awareness, because it's people like you guys, that the world needs more of. We need more people that are going to be empathetic and open and that shoulder to cry on, like JM was saying earlier.
Man, that's all. Wow. So a couple things to unpack, and I have actually a question for all of you. The interesting thing is, I don't know if you guys saw this, Webster's dictionary word of the year was authentic for 2023. Which is an interesting meaning for me. That was the company that I started 10 years ago and sold earlier this year. It was called Authentic. So there's kind of a special aspect of that, total outside of this conversation. But it's interesting listening to you talk about Say My Name and the success that you had and the challenge you had, really being vulnerable and transparent and going down the path that your heart was telling you to authentically. And then that being the most successful record that you've put out. And you've obviously got this video that you're really passionate about, even talking about the narrative, which is super cool. I'm just interested, like, what do we think is the reason all of a sudden being more vulnerable is okay? Being authentic is okay. Saying you're not okay is okay. People like us are starting channels like this to have this conversation. I was like wrapping my brain about this yesterday with my wife, trying to figure out like, what was the reason? What drove us to this point? But I'm interested, Destiny, obviously in your perspective first, but Carrie and Joey, we haven't talked about this on the show. I'm interested, like, how did we get here? What is the reason that all of a sudden people are like, it's all right to say that I'm, on tilt for some reason, or that you're making me feel uncomfortable?
I have a very specific answer to that, but Destiny, go ahead and let's get your take on it first.
Okay, you can go first if you want.
I think it's social media and the millennial generation at whole. If you look economically, there was a study that was published about
Here comes the doctor, Carrie.
There was
I knew the doctor was going to come on this one.
Well, no, I mean it's very fascinating. So there was a study that was published recently that shows each generation from Gen X, Millennial, and Gen Z, and their expectation of how much money they need to live. And millennials were like 4 times higher than every other generation. Gen Z was like almost like the poverty level of what they think they could use to survive off of. Gen X just has no expectations for themselves in general. But I think what we're seeing now when it comes to this like authentic self conversation and people wanting to be free of secrets and free of lies and free of like pomp and circumstance, it's an overcorrection for the influencer era of the 2000s, of the Instagram age of 2010 to 2015, where there was a lot of people trying to emulate and be other people, but not really trying to be themselves. So we had a massive era of people not feeling that they were good enough, and they were trying to front to become something that they weren't. And now Gen Z is coming in and they're kind of knocking over the Jenga board, and they're saying, no, fuck all this. We're going to do something completely different. That's my take.
Yeah. I would
like he
agree
had the
with
question.
that, Joey. I think saying it's an overcorrection is really well said, because with social media, as we all know, everyone's heard a million times the cliche of, it's your highlight reel. But it really is for the most part. And so, yeah, I think as an overcorrection of, all of these filters and perfect highlights and traveling and people, displaying their best parts of themselves to an extreme that we, probably didn't see as much before social media. I think that mental health issues probably have become a much greater issue than ever before. And then stack on top of that the pandemic, with COVID and everything. I think that really triggered a lot of people. I mean, how could it not? People all like, this was a whole world event. And, in history, throughout history, all of the other, pandemics were isolated to one area. And this was worldwide. So I think the whole world now, people, they're isolated. I knew people who didn't see anybody for months, like didn't have family, thankfully I have family in Las Vegas, so I was able to see my family during that time. But I think that triggered a whole new domino effect of people's mental health issues either getting worse or people experiencing mental health issues for the first time.
Hmm.
And so I think that also sparked a conversation because a lot of people, I think there was a huge rise in suicide and divorce, and, people were not used to being around, other people so much if it was their family. And then in other situations, people had nobody at all. So,
You bring up a really good. I mean, think about just like the rise of like the gotcha moments on the internet and people getting pinched and called out for any kind of indiscretions and stuff like that. So I'm sure there's a bunch of fear out there as well of like, look, if you live a shitty life and you're an asshole, you're going to get called out for it. And so one thing that I think is a good rule, kind of like a good mantra to live by or whatever, if you want to try to live your authentic life, is think about how amazing it would be if you recited these 3 phrases to yourself every day. I've got nothing to prove, I've got nothing to lose, and I've got nothing to hide. Right? Like if you can actually say to yourself, I've got those 3 things, not, whatever, then you're probably living a pretty authentic life. And I think about that usually through the context of substance abuse and alcohol abuse and stuff like that, mainly because I've dealt with other people that, not just myself, but I've dealt with other people that are abusing substances. And that last one is usually the key. There's usually something they're hiding. And I think it would be an amazing life for most people if they can try to strive to live their life without those 3 elements. Don't hide things, don't act like you've got like you can't reset your life and start over. You absolutely can. So, I think if we try to live more in that direction, we'll wind up getting towards authenticity.
What about you, Carrie, man? What do you got on this?
I love
I'm
that.
sure you have a good thought on this too.
Yeah, I mean, it's always fun to go last because you have a chance to just let all that marinate. But I truly do have faith in humanity because I have faith in myself, and I truly believe that this outer world is a reflection. Although that can be painful sometimes, it's a responsibility that I've chosen. So I just feel like we're moving to a space where EQ is becoming more important than IQ, and as a result, people are realizing, and JM, these aren't my original words, but they're realizing that like, wow, this mess is part of my message. Like these tests are part of my testimonial. And as a result, I just feel like we're evolving. Like it's just natural for us to evolve. If you plant a seed and you keep putting enough dirt on it and you keep nurturing it with water, at some point it's going to grow. And I think just us as a species, we're just realizing like sweeping it under the rug is just going to cause it to just cause more mess versus let's show it and let's start to clean it up. So I believe in humanity.
We're humans. I think that's right. I think everything you guys all said really aligns to that. But at the end of the day, there's a human connection to this. Go ahead, Destiny.
I just was going to say, Carrie, that I love that you said my mess is part of my testimonial. That's so beautiful because everybody in life, no matter who you are, you're going to experience tragedy of some sort at some part of your life. And I think in the mental health conversation, it's so important to remember that we don't have to have shame about our mess, that, we can work through it and grow and evolve, and that our mess is a part of our story. And those experiences make us who we are. And, even though I've had some very difficult moments in my life, as everyone has, looking back, I'm so thankful for each moment because it has brought me to where I am today.
Let's double click into that a little bit. Like most viewers and listeners don't understand the tragedies that you've had to endure. And I think it's interesting because, we've all had personal and professional tragedies that we've had to go through, but you've got a very interesting situation because you're Destiny the person, but you're also Destiny the brand and Destiny the product, and everything is kind of molded into one. I saw the news clips out. I mean, I was living out in LA when your house went, was part of the wildfires out there. And then I think a couple days later, your sister's school might have been involved in a mass shooting. So like, tell us a little bit about what's going through your mind during those crazy events. Also, meanwhile, trying to manage and maintain this product and brand called Destiny Malibu that you're trying to put out there on an everyday basis. What's going through your head? How are you holding this brand together whilst things are seemingly falling apart in the personal side?
Well, that was in 2018, and it was definitely one of the most challenging experiences of my life. My family experienced two pretty severe tragedies within 48 hours. And growing up in Malibu, California, there was a wildfire, and it was the biggest wildfire since the 1950s. So, tons of my friends and people I know also lost their homes to this wildfire, and it was a very challenging time. And the next day after this wildfire happened, my sister, she was at, I'm sorry, the day before, my sister was at the Borderline Bar and Grill. So it wasn't her school, but it was a country line dancing bar. My sister loves to country line dance, and she's amazing at it. And she knows like every song, that it blows me away every time. But she was out country line dancing, and a shooter came in, and it was complete chaos, and people started screaming. And my sister explains the story to me that everybody was dancing and they heard gunshots, and initially people thought it was the song, like there was gunshots in the song or something. And then all of a sudden, people were being shot, and there was this utter panic, and people started running everywhere. My sister got trampled, and people were breaking windows to try to get out of this big country line dancing bar. And this shooter, had put ladders on the exits of this bar. So it was very premeditated, knowing that people were going to try to run out. It's very sad that these types of events are still happening. And how something can happen years ago, but I didn't go through it, but just knowing that my sister went through this is very hard, and knowing that I could have lost her that day is very hard to process. And out here in Vegas, we're a big part of the country community as well. We still go line dancing and do all that, and a lot of our friends out here were also in the shooting that was out here in Vegas. And so a lot of the people are able to relate to my sister, and for a lot of them, it's very, very difficult. And, trauma presents itself in so many different ways. And one of my sister's close friends, he actually charged the shooter to try to stop him, and he ended up dying. And, we consider him a hero, and the sheriff that came in there also passed away, also a hero. And when things like this happen, it's world shattering. You would never think you're going to go out with your friends and have a fun night, and that there's going to be someone that comes in there with severe mental issues that's going to try to take people's lives. So that happened, and then the next day, I mixed it up. The next day, the wildfires happened, and we lost our home. So it was very traumatic. It was a lot in 2 days, and for me, I'm so happy and so grateful that my sister is okay, and I am so devastated for my friend and for my sister's really close friend that lost her brother, and the different people that passed away. And it's in those moments that you have to decide, am I going to keep going or am I going to give up? And it's really a moment of evolving as a human, because I think a lot of times when you're in that moment, when you've lost everything you have, when you've got through a traumatic experience like that, it's a natural to just want to give up and just say, I don't know where to go from here. Thankfully, I have my family and my friends, and that concept that I always go back to of community. It's so important to have community, because when you're in those moments, when you're deciding if you're going to keep going or going to give up, it's so important to have people to talk to and and somebody to lean on.
Yeah, I mean, if more people would take that advice, we wouldn't have as many of these atrocities in the world. So thank you for sharing your testimony.
My condolences too, Destiny. That's a lot of loss for your community. So my heart goes out to you all.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Well, there's no real easy way to transition out of that topic, but I'm going to try to do that right now.
Okay.
I will ask, in terms of line dancing, yeah, that's just something I've wanted to learn for a while. It looks like a lot of fun. There's some fun videos that I've seen online, so maybe we can find you line dancing somewhere.
If you guys are in Vegas and you want to come line dancing, my sister and I will definitely teach you some dances, and it's so much fun.
See, we need to have a song written for a line dance, and we need to have it only performed by people that aren't drinking. I think that would be the that'll be the FUZZEE'ish line dance. We'll call
There's definitely some beer. The line dances that I've seen, and I usually don't partake. I just watch. My family's from my mom's family's from Georgia, so I've seen a lot of line dancing in my life, and beer is in the center of line dancing.
It's part of the deal.
Yeah, so that we would be creating a whole new segment.
We'll replace it with.
But I'm here for it. No, we're here for it. We're here to create new segments. I love that.
Sober line dancing. It'll be.
Let's go, man. That's it right there.
So I got two totally off topic things. First is when I told my son, he's 9 years old, that we were interviewing you today, he knew who you were. And so I thought that was super. It was the first time he was like, oh, like he had a little bit of star shock of what? Oh, like, I just saw her video on you. Anyway, so he's 9. So you're reaching an audience with a good message through whatever you're doing online. And I love that. And I love the story behind the video. I feel even
the last time Jack said that it was about Mr. Beast. So you're
exactly right. And we haven't interviewed that guy, but he's a friend of the show too. But anyways, second part is American Idol closet, like psycho fan to some degree. Like, so I remembered you from American Idol when he said that. I was like, oh my gosh. So let's talk about the judges of American Idol for a second.
That's a good one.
Because I'm sure you followed the show as a child since your mom was in the space. You obviously were on it, I think, in 18 or 19?
Actually that same year.
Yeah, right. That same year that all that. So that, man, you had like the great things that maybe came of that or the not so great. And then obviously all the terrible. So let's talk about the judges.
Yeah.
I think it's still the same judges today that it was then. Is that right?
Yes. I just wanted to say real quick before I answer that question, I want to say hi to your son. So what is his name?
Okay. His name's Jack. He's actually Jack. John Michael Jr., but his name's Jack. Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening to my music, and I love you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You got a fan for life right there.
Yeah, fan for life for sure. That's awesome. Yeah, I appreciate that. No, I'm just curious, like judges on American Idol, right? There's been 4 different groups of them. I'm curious where you put this latest judge panel, because I have a perspective on it that I won't lead the witness on, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on the show generally today versus when it started and the judges.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see the evolution of these shows. I think there's so much talent out there in the world, and whether it's The Voice or American Idol or these different shows, it's every year it's so amazing that these shows bring to light so many talented people and give them a platform. So I think that they're very cool shows. They're very entertaining. And my experience on American Idol was very cool. It was very nerve-wracking and an honor to, sing for Katy Perry and Lionel Richie and Luke Bryan. And it was just an incredible experience. I remember when we were filming that they all came out and Luke Bryan put his arm around me and we're walking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, is this real life? This is so cool.
Should have asked him to do a line dance. He probably had a few of those in it. Yeah.
I'm gonna see if he will. But yeah, it's very cool to, sing for people that have had such huge success. And I've always been a huge fan of Katy Perry, and she's had some huge hits, Teenage Dream, that album, and all of her songs on there. She's an incredible performer. So the whole experience on there was very cool. And I, wouldn't change anything. I'm thankful that I got to be on there. I was on a few episodes. I was on the commercial for the show in Times Square, which was crazy.
That's amazing.
And it was just very cool.
Yeah, JM, awesome. Before you trash the judge panel, which I think that's where you're going, let's give it up for let's just give it up for Katy Perry for a moment because she is part of the Me Total movement, having launched her own line of mocktail drinks. So Katy Perry,
Oh,
we don't know you personally, but you're welcome on the show whenever you want to come.
And
Katy.
actually, interestingly enough, a lot of those tracks on that record you mentioned, another friend, we're all from the same part of Virginia, Reston, Virginia, Stand Up. And a friend of ours that we grew up with, his little brother is Ben Levin, who goes by Benny Blanco in your
okay.
scene, and did a lot of those songs with Katy Perry. So some connection to those records with this show.
Oh, wow.
as
That's
well.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was not going to poo-poo on the judges. I actually really like the judges.
Okay.
I think the judges right now are really actually pretty cool. And I say that because they're all so distinctly different.
Right.
And it actually ties back to a lot of what we've talked about today. There is a human connection between the three of them that only exists because of the respect they have for one another and the fact that they're willing to be vulnerable. I mean, they are friends outside of that show. They are vulnerable with one another. They lean on each other. They are struggling with the same things, and it comes through in how they represent that show. And the same thing happens on The Voice too, to some degree. You see that. And that's why those shows are so great, because there's a human aspect to the people. It's not just robots going out and saying, like it used to be with some of the other previous hosts on that show. So I'm actually a huge fan of it. I hope they keep going because I appreciate the connection and the humanness that they bring to very different backgrounds and very obviously different people, both from a origin story as well as obviously who they are on this planet. So anyways, not poo-pooing on them.
There you go. Well, let's switch gears here a little bit because we are running a little bit lean on time here, and I want to get to our last segment that we typically do with all of our guests, or with most of our guests at least, and we call this the 2 Ps, or products and practices. So one thing that we want to kind of leave with our audience when we talk to our guests is a practical tip or piece of advice from our guests on how they can replace alcohol or substances in their life with a different product or practice. So like me and JM and Carrie, and we've talked ad nauseum about the different kinds of non-alcoholic drinks we like, and mocktails, or just like substituting bars for, other kinds of wellness retreats and stuff like that. Are there things that you do when you're trying AA meetings, whatever? Are there things that you do to take your mind off of alcohol and a sea of young people around you all the time? Like, what do you do to kind of allow yourself to not be, not have FOMO, not want to go there, not want to do that?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I would say that, I'm big on supporting everybody's right for choice and everybody's right for free will. So, I go out and, some of my friends are drinking and some of my friends are doing this. And, if they don't have an issue with it, like, I'm happy for them, for their choices and their freedom to make their choices. And, most importantly to me is to see the people around me happy and to try to have, beautiful conversations with them. I'm really, really big on communication. I'm really, really big into psychology. Like, any free time I have, my favorite thing to read is like self-help books and how to become a better communicator and how to connect with people on a deeper level. That's one of my biggest passions. So for me, I think there's a lot of pressure to go out and drink, and that the fun of going out is drinking. But for me, the fun of going out is connecting. The fun of going out is connecting.
So let me ask you this: are you a big fan of the Irish exit? Do you like leave the bar before? Because if you like to connect and talk to people, my guess is you probably don't like being sober while people are talking to you drunk. So do you head out a couple minutes early and not tell people? Like, what's your strategy there?
No, I can pretty much hone in on who's maybe too inebriated to have a conversation with me, and who is sober enough to have a conversation. I actually do have a couple of friends that when we go out that also don't drink, which is really cool. Yeah. Some of our especially at our country line dancing bar, I have one friend who I love immensely, and he's Mormon and he doesn't drink, so I talk to him a lot.
Real quick, let me bridge the gap between our generation and JM's son Jack's generation, and maybe you can be the bridge that we all need. Mullets. What's going on with mullets in society right now? And is it
good
cool?
question.
Like, I mean, it seems like they're all over the place in normal society, but are they even more prevalent at line dances? Like, what's happening with mullets with the generation below Gen Z?
You know, in my personal opinion, I will say it's a very specific type of person who can pull off a mullet. And for me, the the type of people that I see with them is always a person that I love. I'm gonna say, in my experiences, I'm not saying, you know, that's like a general uh, blanket statement, but like usually they're very charismatic. They usually don't care what people think. They're usually very fun, and they're usually you know, just easy to talk to. So I'm a fan of the mullet. I'm
There you
also
go.
a fan of the little mustache
Pencil
that
mustache.
I think got popular from what's that movie, Top Gun?
Yeah.
When Top Gun came out, I swear every guy at the bars had a mustache, and I was like, I kind of like it.
What happens when I do
like it.
this on the video? Do you guys see this mullet?
It's restoring masculinity, traditional.
No, but can I show my? I wonder if I can show. Oh, here we go. Can you guys see this mullet?
I can't see the mullet.
Can't see anything.
Oh dang, dude! I'll have to set. We'll have to figure
Is
out
it
how
a
to
picture
show.
of you with the mullet?
It's a picture of my son Jack. He's 9 years old. He's a baseball player. He plays like for a 9-year-old, too competitive of baseball, and all these kids have and had mullets over the summer.
It's all right. We'll have the
It's
guys over at Herd go ahead and superimpose the mullet picture on top of the YouTube
Okay,
video.
good. Because
Yeah,
I
we'll
want to
do that.
see. He
No,
sounds
I'll
like a
figure.
little
We'll.
kid.
Yeah, I'll make it happen because he has a strong head of hair and had a really good mullet going.
I was
for a
gonna
while
say,
there.
man, if I had the resources up top, I'd give it a shot. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. It's adventurous. It's fun. I like to see people, you know, experimenting and just having fun with life. So
But
if having a mullet or a mustache makes you happy, I say go for it.
But
Go
I'll
for
say
it.
this, tying it all back together. One of the outputs of The Voice, obviously Morgan Wallen. Another big fan of
Love him.
Morgan Wallen is Jack. And obviously he went from the mullet to clean cut. And I think he pulled it off and made as big of a statement by doing that. So
There you
anyways.
go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've been tuned in to the FUZZEE'ish podcast. I'm your host, Joey Q, joined with Carrie and JMG, our usual suspects. Destiny, thank you so much for joining us. Destiny, if our audience members want to consume some of your content, where would you say the best place to go? Is it your Instagram? Is it your YouTube? And how do they get there?
Yeah, so you can go to destinymalibu.com, and on there I have links to all of my socials, my TikTok, my Instagram, my Twitter, well I guess it's called X now, my Facebook, my podcast. I also have a mental health podcast called the Destiny Malibu Podcast. So if anybody listening today wants to connect with me, I'd love to be your friend and, you know, keep growing the community. And thank you, Joey and Carrie and JM, so much for having me. You guys are so much fun and so thoughtful. And thank you so much for doing what you're doing for the world.
And you can find Destiny's episode on the FUZZEE'ishpodcast.com, along with clips from this episode on all of our social media. So thank you very much for joining us, Destiny. We appreciate you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Destiny.
Thank you, Destiny.
Thank
I'll
you,
tell Jack
guys.
hello for
Have
you.
an amazing
Awesome.
day.
All
Yeah,
right,
you too.
have a
Enjoy
good
the
one.
holiday.
All right.
Okay, happy holidays. Bye.
Take care.